everyone, my name's Amy, and normally I do formal science videos talking about nutrition, but this week I thought I would show you guys what I actually grocery shop for. So I just got back from going to 3 different grocery stores, my local Asian market, Trader Joe's, and then to pick up a last couple of little things, my local Sprouts. And I'm gonna show you guys what I got and a little bit more about some cool things that I have used in the past from Trader Joe's specifically. So let's get started. All right, so here I am at my local Trader Joe's. There was a long line on this day because we're trying to social distance outside the store, but here we go on inside. So this is the produce section, and it's the first place that I suggest people go, but at Trader Joe's, I don't like to get too much produce here because most of it's in a plastic bag. So let's look at some bread instead. This is my favorite type of bread at Trader Joe's. It is whole grain, has no oil, and is higher in protein and fiber than other types. And Trader Joe's is the absolute cheapest place to get this. It is literally $1 less expensive than anywhere else you would find this bread. It still is a little bit pricey, but it's really good. Now I have fun memories with this. It might not be healthy, but my mom used it last year as my birthday cake, and it was really, really good. Fully vegan banana bread. All right, now over in the frozen section, they've got some really great veggie burgers. This is one of my favorite types. Now I don't use veggie burgers every day, but when my family grills, it's sometimes good to have like a little treat. They also have an Indian marsala burger, which they didn't actually have that day in the store, but is still really delicious. Both of those veggie burgers are basically only made out of vegetables and a couple of other things to hold it together. And they do have oil in them, but they're fairly inexpensive and good for a quick dinner, especially if you're going to be doing some grilling with your family. All right, this is my favorite type of milk that they have there, oat milk. They have it fairly inexpensive, and this one is supplemented with vitamin D and B12, which is really good, especially the supplementing with B12. So let's get some. I'm kind of running low. They also have these types of almond and coconut yogurts that are vegan. They do have some others, but they're not vegan because they contain whole milk. Now to the vegan section. Basically everything in this section is vegan except for like a couple of items that do use dairy. Let me show you my favorites from this section. This tofu is really good because you can eat it straight from the package, and this one's the spicy version. This is my favorite type of tofu because it's shrink wrapped. It means that you don't actually have to press it as much if you want to cook with it, such as make a tofu scramble. And it's fairly inexpensive. This is tempeh, but Trader Joe's has the cheapest tempeh around, and this happens to be a cake of soybeans and whole grains. That's kind of what it looks like, and it's really good, and I have a recipe with it on my channel. You can't beat $1.99. Everywhere else, it's literally $1 more expensive. This is hummus. That's really good. It does contain oil, so I like to make my own hummus at home, but if you want something quick, this is a good type of hummus to use. Now there are some other things they have like this and the next burger that I'm showing you that are more like treats. They don't use these things all the time, but if you need something that's a little bit meatier or are transitioning towards a plant-based diet, something like this is going to help you out with that. All right, they have tons of frozen pasta at Trader Joe's, but this one right here is one of my favorites. Yes, it does show a big splat of butter on the picture, but if you look at the ingredients, it's fully vegan. It does contain oil, just to let you know if you need to avoid it, because people with chronic diseases might, but it's really good. It's made out of kale and is a type of pasta. Decently inexpensive. They also have this cauliflower gnocchi, and they didn't actually have it in store that day, but it's typically sitting over by the kale gnocchi. Now this gnocchi is not vegan. It does actually contain some eggs and milk in it, so don't think that version is vegan. They also have tons of frozen vegetables that I like to get sometimes, including that super cool cauliflower in the back there. This is something new that I found that I think I might try. It's basically just whole grains and vegetables with a little bit of oil. I think that if I mixed it with some beans, maybe like chickpeas, I can make an entire meal out of this. So if you're looking for something quick for dinner, that might be a good option. Also, they have this that I just discovered, which looks really good. Again, has a little bit of oil in it, but is basically just vegetables otherwise. So I think I'm gonna get it at some point and test it out and let you guys know. They also had this one, which looks really good to toss in some lunches. It's made out of a fruit called jackfruit, which is pretty neat. Now, if you want some really quick frozen meals, the riced cauliflower bowl is a good option. It's basically just vegetables with a couple of other things added to keep it good. I wouldn't suggest using stuff like this all the time, but when I first went vegetarian before becoming vegan and didn't know how to cook, I relied heavily on meals like these. Now, this one is also a frozen meal, and they also have this jackfruit curry. They also have tons of frozen berries and other types of fruit for everyone, cheaper than everywhere else. Now, a quick pause about agave. I do not suggest using it. Agave has more fructose than high fructose corn syrup, and because of that, it could actually cause issues with your liver. So please use something else like date syrup. This is basically the only way that I will eat mangoes, and it's a lot easier than getting covered in mango and cutting it up. Check that out. They have them cheap here at Trader Joe's. I've seen this type of soy ice cream at Trader Joe's before, and it seems to be very good. I haven't tried it yet, but it is vegan. They also have a different flavor, this one, the chocolate cherry chip, which I'd like to try at some point too. These are good for treats, but I don't suggest using these items every day again. But hey, you can have a treat if you want to. Now for a couple of jarred things that I like. This is fire roasted red peppers. It works really well on pasta. This is a super cool trick. If you don't like chopping garlic, get a jar of minced garlic. It helps out so much when you are cooking. I basically don't buy fresh garlic anymore. And check that out. It's super duper cheap. This is my favorite type of olives. It's fairly inexpensive as compared to other places, and I have a jar of this at home that I like to put on pasta. Pasta sauce is typically vegan, but these two kinds are not. They both contain dairy. This is my favorite type of pasta sauce from here. It is lower in oil and doesn't have any salt added, which is really, really good. Now, because of that, it has a little bit more of a plain flavor, but you can always dress it up with other spices and other veggies when you're at home. This is gnocchi, a type of potato pasta from Italy, which is really good. It's fairly inexpensive here, and I do suggest you try it. This is one of my favorite types of pasta. It's completely gluten-free if you need to eat that way, and it's rather delicious. I like putting my mac and cheese sauce on top of it because it gets caught in all those spirals and coats really well. They also have these red lentil and black bean pastas, which are higher in protein and in fiber than your regular types of pasta because they're made out of lentils and beans. A lot less expensive here than other places. This is what I use to make falafel. It's really good, and it makes making falafel really super easy, which is great for me because I might not necessarily be the best cook, but I can at least make this. I don't go to Trader Joe's all the time, but if I do, this is the peanut butter I get. It literally is just ground up peanuts, and for $1.99, you cannot beat the price. Now let's head back home and see what I actually got for the week. Alright, so here's all the groceries that I got for this week. I know it looks kind of like a small amount, but I typically just cook for myself and not really for anyone else, and we don't have much space in our cabinets or refrigerator for me to be able to get a ton of stuff just for me. Also, I have a ton of rice and beans and other whole grains already, but I'll be getting into that in a little bit. Here I've got some bean sprouts and some pea sprouts. My local Asian market has these really inexpensive, and so I really like having them, especially the pea sprouts, because they're super nutritious. If you look here, it's got 50% of your vitamin C in about 1 cup, and if you steam them down, that winds up being really small. For the bean sprouts, I'm using them this week with a Malaysian soup called Laksa. So this will be the perfect topping for that, and I'll probably use them next week again for going into a bean sprout salad for lunches. Now, I also went out to farmer's market, or at least my mom did, and she got these veggies here. So this is some farmer's market fresh green beans that I'm going to be turning into some spicy green beans for later this week to go with my lunch, because I like to do Japanese style bento lunches. You can check that out on my Instagram, because I do a what I eat in the day basically every single day. But this is my kale. Now the bunch of kale was a little bit bigger than this, but I like to prep my kale like this. I tear it apart and put it in a container like this, and it makes it so that it's really easy to use. All right, next, an onion, kind of the base of most cooking. So pretty standard. Now these are 2 mangoes, and I love mangoes frozen on my breakfasts. And for this week, I'm going to be chopping these up, throwing them in a plastic bag to stick them in our freezer so I can use them in coconut flavored oatmeal, or to throw it on the yogurt that I'm going to be showing in a minute. Now, this is all the stuff that I got that is kind of canned, frozen, or whatever else. This I showed in the Trader Joe's section of this video, and is my favorite form of tofu. This is really cool because it's actually my favorite dessert. It's mochi. All mochi that you're going to come across happens to be fully vegan every single time. So this is taro and mung bean mochi. As you can see, I had one on the way back. It was like 12-ish when I was leaving the Asian store, so I needed to have a snack. So this is frozen shelled edamame that I get at my local Asian market, and I really like having this around because it's a super easy thing to use very quickly. Another meal prepper trick is minced garlic that's jarred. I got this at Trader Joe's, but you can find it even at the 99-cent store, and it makes it super easy so you don't even have to cut up the garlic. This I'm using for my laksa for this week. Instead of making the paste from scratch, I'm going to use this. I have the recipe that I'm using linked down in the description box below. It is not mine, but it should be really good. This is just a staple for me. It's pure chili paste. Now this one does actually happen to have some oil in it, which normally isn't in chili paste like this. It's really good and adds a nice little smoky heat. This is some coconut milk that I'm also going to be using in the laksa. And final thing over here is some dairy-free soy yogurt for breakfast. Alright, so if you want to see how these meals kind of come together, then please check out my Instagram. Every day I post what I eat, or at least I try to as often as I can, to make sure to give people some ideas for how to make quick meals and how to meal prep for being on a vegan diet. Because it's not as challenging once you learn how to cook and what recipes you enjoy making. Like I mentioned, the recipes that I'm going to be using for this week are going to be linked down in the description box. Some of them are my own recipes, but one of them, the laksa, is going to be linking to a different food blog that will show you guys how to make that. Alright, so I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you always remember to love God, eat greens, get moving. See you in the next video.